Folks, please take your seats. We're going to have some great slides. I'd like to introduce Joshua Moldover.
Afternoon. So, some of you I know, others I don't, but welcome all. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Williamsburg branch of the New Haven, it was an 8-mile line from Northampton out to Williamsburg, Massachusetts, that was built in 1868 as the kind of the last expansion of the New Haven and Northampton under New York and New Haven control as part of their ongoing war with New Haven and Hartford until the two ended up merging later on. The last passenger train on the line ran in 1922. And roughly 100 years after the line opened, 101 specifically, it was abandoned by the Penn Central in late 1969. So these are slides from a collection that I acquired a few years ago. I did not take them. I was about a year old when they were taken. And unfortunately, my skills with the camera had not quite advanced to be able to do that. But these were taken by a gentleman named Bert Toll, who lived in the Northampton area. And I acquired these from his daughter. He passed away a number of years ago. So we start out chasing a rather unusual train. This is in October of 1969. We're a little bit south of Northampton, between East Hampton and Northampton. And we've got an RS3, a coach, and bringing up the rear, a Pennsy clearance car, which is not something you would normally see. So I don't know if this was the last train ever on the line. I've seen some evidence that says there was a freight car load that was picked up in February of 1970, which was the last movement. But the Penn Central filed for abandonment within a couple of weeks after this run. So I don't know if this was an inspection of sorts before abandonment. They ended up selling the right-of-way to Mass Electric. So I don't know if it was a tour of the line for the Mass Electric folks to say, this is what you're going to be getting if you want to buy it. But as I said, we catch the train south of Northampton, and we're now just north of the Northampton station, where the Williamsburg branch comes off of the main line and crosses over Route 5. This bridge is no longer there. This is now, the line itself is now a bike trail. And the property in the curve there is occupied by a car dealer. Was back in 1969 as well. And you can see there's a rather tight clearance between some of the cars in the parking lot. That they weren't quite sure they were going to get past. And so now we're heading toward, at this point, the end of the line in Florence. The line had been cut back from Williamsburg in 1962. This is the Florence station. And this image is one of the things that actually guarantees that the date on the slides themselves is accurate, because the signs alongside the station there are for the election of the person who was running for mayor of Northampton in 1969. and did not run at any other point. So it's unfortunately, the only information that I have on the slides is basically the dates printed on them when they were developed, and what I've been able to interpret from looking at the images in sequence. So I don't know the history of this run. I don't know, what else might have been going on. I haven't seen any other pictures out there from, of this. So I don't know if Bert was the only guy who was chasing it, or if there were others as well. Close-up of the engine before running around the train. And they cut off the power and run around at the end of the line there. In, as you can see clearly, a very grass-covered track that had not seen much in the way of use. And we have a close-up of the two cars themselves. Yeah. Believe, see if we can get a, I think it was the 551 is what comes to mind. The number on the coach does not show up in any of the pictures, unfortunately. At least not that I can read. The clearance car is another matter. As I said, that one's an oddity, and how that ended up on the tail end of the train, I have no idea. It may have simply been that Penn Central said, we need a car for officials, and so this is what we have.
No, actually, they really do that clearance car, because they have no idea, even with the excavating files, of what could fit where. Because of course, at that point, cars were getting larger than what's called plate C. So, from
Yeah.
a safety standpoint, they need to get the lay of the land.
Fair enough. And that's as far as that set goes. That's where the chase ended, at least as far as the slides that I have. As I said, I don't know any other history on it. I'm not sure which grade crossing south of Northampton the first couple of shots were taken at. If anybody recognizes it, let me know. I would love to label them a little bit better. But as I said, if not the absolute last movement on the Williamsburg branch, certainly close to the last and a rather unusual one. Yes?
You mentioned that it's now a rail trail.
Yes.
Where does the rail trail run from to?
Runs from Northampton out to the Northampton-Williamsburg line. There are some property ownership issues that have prevented it from going further. The history of the right-of-way is sort of convoluted. After it was sold to Mass Electric, the city of Northampton bought the portion within Northampton for use as a sewer route. And I don't know if that ended up happening or if it just went on from there, and then the city decided that they wanted to turn it into a bike trail. And because they only owned the portion up to the city line, that's as far as it goes. It's about 5 or 6 miles. Yeah.
Did Mass Electric ever do anything with the property?
I don't know. As far as I can tell, looking at it now, there's no sign of like high voltage wires or anything like that. So they may not have. They may have said, okay, we're going to buy this so we have a right-of-way if we need it. And then the city came to them and said, we want to purchase this for our use. And at that point, the electric company said, okay, we don't need it anymore. Yeah.
Josh, do you know if it's been surfaced, or is it still, you know, sort of in natural condition?
So the part that has been turned into a formal rail trail is paved. There's a replacement bridge over Route 5 that connects with the trail that goes down to the Northampton station and ties in with the Mass Central Rail Trail. So it is easily accessible. The portion right after you leave the right-of-way that now parallels the B&M tracks is, I think, through Look Park. And then ends up joining the right-of-way after crossing Route 5.
Do you know anything about the places the freight would surface along that line? Is there any particular industry that was key, or was it small potatoes?
Well, the biggest customer on line and what ended up leading to the line being abandoned was a VA hospital in the Florence portion of Northampton that received coal for their power plant. And when they converted to natural gas, that was basically the death knell for the line. You had some smaller customers, Northampton Lumber, I think, was one of them, and some others. But basically, after the hospital converted over to gas, that was it, pretty much north of East Hampton. And so that was what led to, basically from Florence all the way down through East Hampton getting abandoned in 1969, 1970. Yeah.
Yeah, Josh, I want to carry it back a little further, all the way to Williamsburg. Eastern Farmers Exchange just shipped grain up there. My cousins were customers in them.
Okay.
Williamsburg, and then the paper bill to the track that came down across Route 9, but the building's still there. They, I don't know what it's 8 millimeter back, typical mill building. And there's lumber and some old deal with Williamsburg too.
Okay. Yeah, but as
There's like a brush company in Florence with a big customer one time too.
yeah, I mean, certainly there were a number of customers in the Florence area, and if you look at valuation maps and look at industry and siding descriptions, there were a number of industries right in that area. A lot of that, unfortunately, had kind of dried up by the time we got to the 1960s. But earlier than that, yeah, it was a fairly busy and active line. So, thank you.
5 minutes.